good, grown up family, YouTube grown up family? Welcome to the Grown Up Podcast, where you already know what we do here if you're a long time subscriber. But if you're new, we talk about that grown up shit. We celebrate independence, and we got that naturally on the wave music for you monthly. Thank y'all so much for your support, for the likes, the shares, and the comments, and the love. I truly appreciate it. It really does not go unnoticed. And this is new for me. I am now officially getting the video component that I've been yapping about for the past 4 years doing this podcast, 4 years this month, and crazy enough as well. So, the past 4 years, I've been building myself up to this point of putting myself out here visually and just getting comfortable with that, and that's a whole nother story. That's a whole YouTube video in itself that of course I'll get to later on as I get more comfortable and of course figure out how I want to structure things and all of that. So thank you for joining me on the grown up ride. And if you are now here on YouTube checking me out, I much appreciate you. I'm very, very grateful to be able to continue this podcast and continue to do what I love. So I'm thankful. I appreciate y'all. And I have a really great episode for y'all today. I have a guest joining me for this month's episode. It's a life coach, another life coach. I'm all about mental health. I'm all about overall health, and I'm all about supporting independent people, as y'all know, especially independent people who are in support of the things that I'm in support of. And hopefully you gain some things from our conversation. Hopefully you tap in with the guests. The links, of course, will be in the description, y'all. I got my outro that I'll say for y'all, of course, so stick around. Hopefully you watch the whole conversation to the end, and then I'll wrap it up for y'all. But just showing much love, and I appreciate y'all. So with that being said, I'm not gonna make this intro too long because the interview is long. So I appreciate y'all. Let's get into this month's episode of the Grown Up Podcast with special guest, life coach Glenn Citerony.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Grown Up Podcast, where you already know what we do. We talk about grown up shit, we celebrate independence, and of course, we have that natural and a wave music at the end. Today, we have an amazing guest joining me. I said great and amazing in the same, try to blend it together, but it just kind of came out great, amazing. So there we go. Here on the podcast, we explore the journeys of individuals who are boldly pursuing new career paths while leveraging their valuable skills and experiences. Today's guest, Glenn Citerony, is a seasoned professional who has dedicated 3 decades of leadership to the biotech and pharmaceutical industry. Ooh, I'm getting a little tongue-tied already. With a wealth of knowledge and experience under his belt, Glenn Citerony is now embarking on a new adventure as he transitions to a different career path. Join me as we delve into his story, uncovering the insights, challenges, and triumphs he has experienced along the way. He has also utilized an artful blend of ancient philosophy and modern principles to embark on this mission to transform and help busy professionals and executives. So, we're going to get into a lot and get ready to be inspired and motivated by Glenn Citerony's leap into the unknown and helping professionals achieve their goals as well. So without further ado, with that wonderful long intro for y'all, let's bring to the stage life coach and professional speaker, Glenn Citerony. How you doing?
Hi, Derek. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I hope, am I saying your name correctly?
You are. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Nice job.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Well, it's very nice to have you here on the podcast. I'm very excited to introduce you to the Grown Up Podcast audience and what you do. So let's get started with my first question. Tell us the condensed version of the events that led you to become a life coach and corporate speaker after spending so long in the biotech and pharmaceutical industries.
Yes. About 10 years ago at work, human resources came to me and they said, we don't have any money for a wellness workshop. Can you put one on?
Wow. Okay.
So, I never talked about my background, which is competitive bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding, and my pursuit in athletics. So I never really talked about it at work, but obviously
Yeah.
word gets out, and I said, okay, I'll do it. We won't pay you, but maybe we'll give you a Target gift card or Starbucks gift card, and that's fine. So what I did is I created a curriculum on
Nice.
nutrition, fitness, emotional health, and wellness.
Wow.
And I put these workshops together. They were well received. And then afterwards, people would come up to me and they'd say, you affected my life. This is what I've done differently. This is how I've changed my habits.
Wow.
Can you talk to my son?
Wow.
Like, wow. Okay. This is well beyond what I thought the impact would be.
Right.
So I did this for a number of years, but after a while, I was starting to become known as the wellness director at work. And I thought, you know what, I can't keep this up. I have a day job, which was substantial and responsibilities. I just couldn't do it simultaneously.
Right.
But I always kept it in the back of my mind that if I left the industry, I would pursue something where I could help people. I could change lives. And when I was let go through the acquisition of my company 6 months ago, I thought, why don't I pursue this? Why don't I give my wisdom, things that have come from being a parent of 2 kids, twin boys, a father, a husband, juggling a job that was really challenging, being on the road, and trying to be fit, both emotionally and physically. Why don't I give that wisdom to others like I did through the workshops? And this is what I'm doing now to see if I can impact other people's lives. That's all. That's what it's about. The one twist I've added, Derek, is the spiritual component. But when it came to me, is really it's about mind, body, and spirit. And the spirit component had to be integrated. And when I'm writing a book, and the book is being edited, and it was the most fun part was the spiritual component, and that should not be neglected. So this is what's led me to this point.
Wow. That's truly incredible. I've actually embarked on my own spiritual journey. So it's very exciting to now have you on the podcast, and we're going to be delving a little bit deeper into that component. So I'm very excited that you kind of touched on that, and that's the area that you're working in. So my next question I have, we're going to focus on the key areas that you work on with professionals and individuals alike in your profession. So right now we're going to focus on personal development and self-improvement. I'm in a season of my life of prioritizing personal development and self-improvement, but it took a life-changing event for me to come to this point. So in your opinion, what would you say are 3 important things that would help someone develop a growth mindset and adopt a positive attitude towards self-improvement, maybe a little faster or without such a hassle of a huge event or life-changing thing happen in their life?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it often takes an epiphany, something that stops the person in their tracks to say, this isn't working. Could be a divorce, could be a health scare, but you don't want to get to that point, right? You don't want to get to that point where you've hit a crux in your life, and then you're basically in reactive mode, and you're scared, right?
Absolutely.
Am I going to lose this? Am I going to lose that? So what's important is to be proactive and see the signs, right? As you're driving down the highway and you're going through life and you're seeing warning signs come up. It could be, like I said, could be something, unfortunately, a heart scare. It could be something that your spouse says to you, you're not spending enough time with your kids, but you kind of just keep going. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But eventually what I try to help people is using their intuition to basically say, okay, what am I feeling here? What am I sensing? Slowing things down and understanding that those signs are there on purpose. That's what life is giving you. And you have to read the signs. Otherwise, you're going to get off the road eventually. Your body will rebel. Your kids may not know you after a while, or those relationships may be frayed. Or your spouse, right? You may not recognize your spouse after a number of years and go, how did this happen? How did I get here? And it shouldn't come to that. So the point is about personal development and self-improvement. There has to be a growth mindset. There has to be an understanding that I may be 45 years old, but I'm not too old to learn. I'm not too old to develop. Because once that happens, once you've gotten to that point, it's like a tree that's fixed, and it's really hard to bend the tree. I've got trees outside that I'm looking at. And once they're mature, it's really hard they're not very pliable anymore. You've got to get to a point where I go, you know what? I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to humble myself, to take my ego out of it and say, hey, I need some coaching. That's what's important is, and what does it take? Hopefully it doesn't take a life event, and hopefully you're reading the signs along the way. And I help people read the signs or understand that they have to react to them in a positive manner.
Absolutely. I definitely 100% agree with that. And I love that comparison that you made to a tree being mature and not being able to bend. That's something I may use in my life. So the next section we're going to focus on here is biohacking 2.0 and the intersection of mind, body, and spirit. And so could you explain what is biohacking? And then I have another question for you after that.
Yeah. The biohacking is a loaded word. It's about basically finding, it's what I interpret it as is, how can we short circuit a process? How can we get somewhere faster, right? And oftentimes that is a byproduct of technology and the speed of our lives. But in many cases, I'd say 90% or plus of cases, you really can't short circuit the process. And what I mean by process is, when I'm taking my clients and I'm coaching people, it's understanding where you are now. Really, what's the lay of the land? What are we working with? And understanding that foundation, that wealth of material, you'll need that to really improve your life, to grow from that point, that foundation. But biohacking, again, back to that point, I really want to answer your question. I don't really like to use that term that often, because it says, okay, how can I get there? How can I get this done quicker? And it's the process. The process is imperative. It's not often focusing on the result where you want to go, which is important. You need to have goals, but you have to focus on the process, the day-to-day, and oftentimes the mundane work, the boring work, whether it's improving your body, whether it's improving your mind, your emotional resilience, or improving your spirit, connecting to the divine. It doesn't happen in minutes. It doesn't happen in days. It happens over the course of days, a course of weeks. Not getting a whole lot off my prayer life. Well, how often do you pray? I don't pray that often. You got to connect into the divine. It's like a relationship. If I spoke to my wife every few weeks, we wouldn't really have a relationship, would we? Right. If I didn't really work out consistently, my body would start to atrophy. So the biohacking, biohacking is really, I talk about, is using a term that's cool and kind of nouveau. It's what we're using now. But the process, because we're all human and we have flesh and blood, we haven't changed. That's why I use ancient wisdom. We haven't changed in 2,000, 3,000, or 4,000 years. And you can't short circuit a process. And through coaching someone and having them receptive is understanding this is going to take time. This is not going to happen overnight. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with the process? Because the process, like Nick Saban talks about with his players, the process is imperative. It's focusing one play at a time, not looking at the scoreboard, right? It's focusing on what you're doing right here and being mindful in the present moment, which is critical because that's all we have. Can't go past in the past, can't go in the future. This is right now, right here, right now is important.
Absolutely. Strangely enough, the podcast is what has helped me hone in on the present and focusing on now. Experiencing all the ups and downs in the podcast throughout these 4 years, it's been a whirlwind, but staying focused on what it is that I need to do right now in order to continue sustaining my passion has been the most valuable tool that I've used for myself to stay focused in my life and this part of personal development and self-improvement. So definitely like that you hit on that at that point. So my next question, still tying into the intersection of mind, body, and spirit. What are some recommended techniques when it comes to incorporating this into one's life?
Oh, how much time do we have?
We got time.
Yeah, we do have time. Thank you, Derek. I would say what's most important is understand the intersectionality of all of them. What we've done as a society is we partitioned out mind. You go to a psychologist or a therapist, which is great. You need to do that. There's specialists, or you go to your primary care doctor, or you go to a priest.
Right.
But those are all interconnected. They're all interwoven in a unique and sacred fabric. And so what I first is really, when I'm talking to someone and they may want to lose weight or they want to tone up or get fit, I go, great, that's physical. But where are you at emotionally, mentally? How are you dealing with stress? Because until we start working with that, right, it's going to be hard to make changes physically, right?
Yeah.
And understanding that, again, sacred fabric between the two, or between the three, that's the most important. Understanding that one affects the other, and you can't work on one facet of the engine, the human engine, without thinking of the impact of the other two. So that's number one. Number two is understanding that there were not victims, or we shouldn't feel like we are succumb to the past or to the future anxiety, meaning our past does not dictate our future, and our future concerns should not dictate how we're operating in the present moment. So understanding that all we have is now, here and now, and how to get into the here and now is through breathing and mindfulness. So you'll see this in my blogs and through my videos. I talk about meditation and mindfulness and just plain breathing extensively, because it's really getting inside yourself and understanding the breathing impacts everything. When I get stressed, the first thing I start to breathe through my mouth, my throat, it gets shallow, and I'm not breathing through my diaphragm. So getting people in the moment, being present, of just understanding how their body's reacting to stress, and through their way of how to not manipulate, but I would say manage their emotions through their own system of breathing. That's really important. And through that, you have a gateway, a conduit to really managing your emotions through your own breathing. Next, for the body. The body is a unique system, and what I would focus on is, again, my background is bodybuilding, so I really preach the importance of muscle mass, especially as we age. People love to be on the cardio machines, which is terrific, but you've got to be strong.
Yeah,
it's hard to. Animals that are strong are hard to kill.
Yeah,
and as you get stronger, you start to become mentally stronger, thinking, "Hey, I lifted that weight." Right? And so really focusing on muscle mass, hypertrophy, and putting cardio, which is important through your metabolic health and your heart health, but that is a secondary component, and not overemphasizing running or being on the treadmill constantly. It's becoming, I always say, how are you getting stronger? How are you in maintaining your muscle mass? Because sarcopenia, as you age, anyone ages, your muscle mass starts to decrease. It's just natural.
Yeah.
And spirit is plugging into the divine. Like I plugged in my computer today to the wall outlet. How do we connect to something greater than ourselves through meaning and purpose? It's really important, because when you know the why, you can determine the how. And so Carl Jung, who spent time with the Hopi Indians 100 years ago, Jung, who's a Swiss psychiatrist, realized that the Hopi Indians were so connected to the environment and understood the divine, and how the moon and the stars and the sun, and it all was interwoven. It was a cosmic purpose. He took that, and it impacted his philosophies in psychiatric care, and realized many people who had psychiatric conditions, a lot of them didn't have purpose. What do you find with a lot of people that are really struggling? They can't find their meaning and purpose. And the connecting to the divine is really important to that. Those are the really high-level components, Derek, of mind, body, and spirit.
Wow. Whew, I feel like I'm in the whole process of that. I'm working on the body part, but definitely definitely the mind and spirit. I'm getting
process.
Absolutely. I tell everyone that, and that's the entire basis of this podcast. Is it's a journey, it's a process. You're not going to be an overnight success, you know. And yeah, I love that you talked about meditation, because it's definitely one of the things that I have been getting into a lot more lately, and meditation has helped me extremely. So I really appreciate you touching on that. And we're actually going to get a little bit more into that right now with this next topic of spiritual practices for everyday life and with cultivating mindfulness and connection. So what are some common obstacles people face when trying to improve themselves?
In the spiritual sense, Derek, or what's...
Yes, in the spiritual sense.
I think the common challenge is that someone may feel like I have to adhere to a dogma or a doctrine. I always believe it's great. Within the framework of your own religion, it's terrific. But that should not dictate everything. That God permeates nature and God permeates us.
Yes.
And that lives within us. And knowing tapping into the divine within you is always there. It's always available. And that comes through prayer and meditation. And when I talk about meditation and prayer are, again, almost sisters. They're unique sisters. Oftentimes, if I'm meditating, I can integrate a prayer practice with that. And I can just say, here's one example. Here's a really good takeaway. Thomas Keating, Catholic monk and priest, talked about a sacred prayer called centering prayer. And what is that? Just focusing on maybe something that's unique to you or sacred to you. Could be, you can focus on a word like mercy, love, peace, and just in meditation and prayer, just keep coming back to peace. Peace. And you'll get distracted, right? The monkey mind starts moving around. Oh, I got to cook my dinner. I got to do, right? It's okay. That's fine. That's part of meditation. But just keep coming back to it. Peace. Breathe. Peace. Or mercy. Or Jesus. Or Buddha. Whoever is sacred in your life. Coming back to the word. And it starts to ground you, right? And you focus on your breathing. And focus on the divine spirit that rests within you, right? But thinking, again, it's not one day, it's not one night. It's doing it in between. Say if you're a physician, a busy physician, you can do this between patients just for a few minutes. Or a student in between classes, sit down at a bench outside your dorm room and go, okay, I'm gonna sit down, you get comfortable, look at the grass, people are walking by, who cares? Don't it doesn't matter what people think of you. Close your eyes and just go, okay, Jesus, or whatever. If you're Hindu, bring up your something sacred in the Hindu religion. Doesn't matter. But focusing on a common sacred image or word, and that centering prayer will center you on the divine within you and how the divine loves you. And so that's a really good takeaway for someone. But again, it's sometimes we get caught up in doctrine or dogma. And I think, as Jesus said, we talked about the Pharisees and the people that were at that time really doing things for show. Jesus didn't want hypocrites. He didn't want people really focusing on the act and the rituals. He wanted to understand, what is that act or ritual doing? It's supposedly connecting you to God. And it really, that's the purpose. All these principles are connecting you to the divine, or whatever you consider God in your life. And that's the focus. And don't let anything interfere with that, because you have that conduit each and every day available to you.
Yes, absolutely. I want to say that just before I moved here to Texas, I was getting consistently into meditation and prayer, and it was probably the best I felt in that short amount of time. And as you said, it's a journey. So I've fallen off a bit since then, but I definitely love that this conversation is happening so that I can put on my mind and stay at the forefront that this is something that was helping me and can continue to help me. And so, thank you. I appreciate that. Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
what do you recommend when
Yeah.
coaching people on spiritual practices to cultivate mindfulness and connection?
Yeah, it's very similar to the last question. I would say knowing that you've got to emphasize it in your life, that ultimately it's like your body, and when you're stressed, the body will tell you, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't often have that in our life in terms of spirituality. We don't have a red light signal,
Right.
but it happens at a very deep level of the subconscious, or I call it the higher self. And ultimately, you've got to prioritize it. And that could be church. It could be doing some philanthropic work in the community, understanding the interwovenness of the community around you, helping out. It could be going out, like I mentioned previously, nature. Nature is God. Dante Alighieri, Italian poet, that was his quote. And it is, go out in nature, put your phone down. Technology really hampers our connection to the divine. Your phone is
Mm-hmm.
not, your phone will never do that for you. It will never
Mm-hmm.
fulfill you. The human ego and technology are really impediments to the connection to the divine. And you've got to say, you know what, I want to somehow connect to God through meditation, prayer, helping others in my community, doing something above and beyond myself. Because when you give, you're really giving to yourself, and you're really connecting to what God is, which is love. And by
Mm-hmm.
caring for others, you care for yourself. You've got to realize that. When you have kids, that's another component. Teach your kids that concept. You're like, well, I'll give you an example. Boys Teen Charity, it's for middle school students. And it's a local, I live here in San Diego, and they do philanthropic work. They have parents go with their kids and do philanthropic work. It's really
Wow.
important to do that. Take them out, lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is another connection to the divine, by showing the interwoven of all of us
Mm-hmm.
and the fabric. We're not islands. We cannot be islands, especially today's day and age where division is often rampant. We're connected. We're connected, and especially in today's world where it's easy to become divided. You've got to connect, and going out and helping others will really serve yourself spiritually.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that 100%. So the next topic that I have a question for you is the tools for living a fulfilling life. So what tools do you give to those whom you speak to on how to live a more fulfilling life? As a part of your modern Stoic practices?
Yeah. With tools, we talked about mindfulness and meditation. Next is understanding that you can manage your emotions, that you're not beholden to your emotions. Obviously, you get angry and things happen, and there's a reaction phase to your emotions. But ultimately, when things settle down, you have the ability to manage your emotions, and that comes through the use of Stoicism. And Stoicism is the foundation for today's cognitive behavioral therapy. So when you go to your therapist, a lot of those concepts from Stoicism are the foundation of
Mm-hmm.
CBT, and understanding that we have the ability to manage our emotions. We're not beholden to them. And ultimately, thinking through what's in your control and what's out of your control. The only
Mm-hmm.
thing that's in your control, your body's not even under your control. People get sick all the time. You do your best to take care of your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your job, you do your best in your job, but ultimately You have oftentimes no control of how others perceive you. You do your best, right? But it's really them. It's their perceptions. You can't change them. So really understanding what's in your control, and the only thing you have under your control, and Viktor Frankl said this, he wrote Man's Search for Meaning and talked about his experiences at Auschwitz, that ultimately what's in your control is your responsiveness, your own emotions, and how you respond to the environment. You have that. And understanding that unique power that you have, which is challenging, believe me, it is extreme. These concepts are hard to apply, but that's why you have to do them each day. Like, okay, someone cut me off in traffic. How do I respond? It's okay. Breathe. Cool. God bless you. It's okay. Right? So and then focusing on the present. Again, Pierre Hadot, French philosopher, talks about stoicism, says, well, as I mentioned previously, we often are dragged into the future by our concerns and our anxieties and our fears, or often dragged back into the past by our memories. Stay within the moment, because that's the totality of your life. That's all you, right? You can't go back. I talked to someone earlier this week. I said, you're letting your past control you. You can't let that happen. And just bringing that mindfulness to the person, understanding, yeah, it is. Okay, how are you going to manage that? Let's talk about some tools. And for me, my challenge is not getting pulled into the future, because in my jobs, 30 years in biotech, I had to plan. I had to think through, what's my budget next year? What are my resources? Constantly thinking of the future. And I still do that in my personal life. And my wife goes, let's stay in the present. And she catches me. Yep, you got to stay in the present. That's my challenge personally. So those are some tools. But again, that's the high level version of understanding emotions, managing your emotions, staying present, breathing. So many concepts that seem very mundane, but are so useful.
Absolutely.
And that the utility if we're talking business, high return on investment, right? High ROI for very low cost.
Yes, absolutely. I want to go back on something that you touched on, which is tapping into the divine. And I want to touch on that for a second, because interestingly enough, I feel like this connection and this conversation is a result of me tapping into the divine, because as I said, I've been meditating and praying, even though I fell off a bit, and I haven't done it as much, I try to still incorporate as much as I can with my schedule picking up as much as it is. But you talking about tapping into the divine and everything else that you are explaining hereafter, and as you're saying, a more higher concepts, I feel like I'm understanding it so much. And I'm really getting it, and it's not just surface level anymore. And it's mind blowing to me, and it's almost making me a little speechless right now. So it's very, very interesting how a life changing event can lead you to a moment to where I am, to where you can tap into the divine. And hopefully people don't have to come to that, and they can listen to this podcast and listen to your words, and hopefully start to take steps to towards self-improvement and personal development. So I really appreciate you coming onto the podcast. I have a couple more questions for you here. So my last topic that I want to touch in is on emotional resilience. So can you explain to people how they can obtain emotional resilience, and what are best practices on how to incorporate that into their life?
Sure. And a lot of the concepts I've already talked about. It's the use of breathing. I mean, the breathing method, for example, you can use box breathing, which is inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, and then expelling for 4 seconds. The magic of that box breathing, or I talk about mindfulness breathing, is in the exhaling. When you exhale the air, you're really invoking the parasympathetic nervous system. that helps with emotional resilience. 2 is understanding that you're the hero of your own story. Challenge the assumptions. This goes back to Stoicism. There's beliefs there. I can't do this, or this is going to be a tough road. Absolutely. But realize that you have within you the ability to manage through that. Think through that you're the hero of your story, and not assume that you'll succumb to this adversity or challenge. But it takes constant care and navigation of your own internal and emotional landscape. And what I mean by that is weeds may come up, weeds of negative thoughts. And I get those too. Just earlier this week, I call them weeds. We get some negative thoughts. And I'm like, if I let this permeate, it's going to grow into I'm going to have to do a lot more weeding. It's going to get worse. And using affirmations, I can do it. I can manage through this. And saying it out loud, not just thinking it, I'm going to work through this. I'm going to manage through that. That's really important for emotional resilience. Leaning on others. Oftentimes, especially men think, I can do this. I can get through this. Really?
Yeah.
Who do you have to talk to? Who do you have in your support system that you can lean on? I have some friends, and I'm getting emotional thinking about it, that I call them and I talk and I share, and it gets there. You need someone in your life that you can share, and you can be vulnerable, because the guard goes down, because especially in the workforce, the guard's always up, right? Threat responses. Guard's always up. Got to show I'm taking care of it. I'm together. But you have to be vulnerable, and you have to show your vulnerability. And where can you do that? With a friend, especially when loneliness is so paramount. It's so prevalent in society. It's really devastating, the loneliness epidemic. And that's just older and senior citizens. It may be people living in families or in a career, and they don't have anyone to talk to, and they feel like, hey, I got to bear this burden, this cross of help. And think about maybe a childhood friend, someone that, maybe that's someone I can talk to. That's another factor for emotional resilience. In addition to that, we talked about the connection to the divine, the prayer, breathing, understanding that in the midst of the adversity or the challenge, that's where God rests. It's not to pull you out of the adversity. It's to give you the strength to deal with it. Oftentimes, I had one person say to me, "Where's my angel? Where's my angel in my life?" And I said to the person, maybe it's your father. Maybe it's your mom. Maybe it's your friend. God may not come through an angel, right? Like Gabriel. But who are the angels in your life? Who can you talk to? That's where the divine rests as well. So it's thinking through emotional resilience is multi-pronged. It's how you talk to yourself. It's the self-compassion. You go, I made a mistake. Why the hell did I do that? And ripping into yourself and going, you know what? It's okay. Take your hand, put it over your heart, and go, okay, I'm fallible. I make mistakes. Give yourself some grace, right? Because you don't need that negative emotion. It's going to come out towards others. So inner talk, managing your emotions, mindfulness, breathing, relying on others, and connecting to the divine, the trinity of mind, body, spirit that comes in. That's really important. Emotional and healthy resilience.
That made me a little emotional because I really felt those words. I truly enjoyed. I mean, I when you connect to the divine, all things you just open up in ways that you just don't understand. I truly appreciated this conversation. Your words were incredible. Your knowledge is incredible, and I'm very excited that God, the bigger creation, whoever has allowed your spirit to go down this road and this journey, and to be able to spread the word about living in the present and spiritual practices, and having mind, body, and spirit, as far as understanding who the potential of who you can be as a human. And so I super appreciate everything that you've said here on the podcast. And what is the most important message that you want people to take away from the work that you do?
That we're never too old to get a coach. Just because you're a parent or you're in your 40s or 50s, that coaching doesn't end in high school with your basketball coach. Yes. That coaches are necessary to help you, and not telling you what to do. It's helping you realize and come up with the solutions yourself. It's pulling it out, and it's coaching. Coaching is not yelling or telling someone, like I said, what to do and here's how you need to do it. It's really a non-biased perspective. It is helping it with a level of expertise and empathize with the person, but realizing that coaching doesn't end in high school or college, that we all need coaches in our lives. And to say, you know what, I think I need someone to maybe help navigate these waters, and it's okay. And that person is going to be a support system for me. That's a really important message about life coaching.
Love that. I love that. And my final question for you is, why should the people connect with you and consider you as maybe reaching out for a conversation or a life coach, or just saying hello?
I guess because I have the key point is that I can empathize with what they're going through. Not perfectly, but I probably have in some realm, some facet, especially if they're a busy professional, executive, they work in a corporation, they have kids, that I know that road. I know what they're going through, and I can empathize and I can provide a perspective to them that may be uniquely different. And also what's uniquely different is the combination of mind, body, and spirit. That I'm coming together in a package to really help them holistically and to get results. Because at the end of the day, you get a coach, you obtain a coach to get results in your life, to transform your life. And that's the important part. That's where the rubber hits the road. And that's the end goal for me. The process is very important, but at the end of the day, helping that individual get results and to have a breakthrough moment and to have in a form, in a method that can transform their life. And through me, it's the whole package of the mind, body, spirit. That's the most important. I think that's what gives me the unique ability to help people.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that people connect with you. Your links will be in the description below, where people can click them right away, follow you. As you can see all on the screen here, you can follow him on Instagram, or you can connect with him on LinkedIn. Glenn, it's been a pleasure to have you here on the Grown Up Podcast. If you have any final words you want to leave with the audience, any personal shout outs you would like to give, and of course, for people who do forget to go to the description, and my audio only listeners, if you could tell them where they can check you out on your social medias.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Instagram. Well, my website is glennciterony.com, GLENNCITERONY.com. And then you can find me on Instagram, as you mentioned, Derek, LinkedIn, and I have my YouTube channel, in which I'm constantly updating and providing videos. So lots of resources for individuals, lots of ways for them to learn and to gain an understanding of how they can help their own life in terms of emotional health, self-improvement, personal development, and spirituality. So I'm there, I'm on the web, and I'm here for them if you ever need me.
Yes, absolutely. Make sure you check him out. Make sure you tap in with him and tap into the divine as you're going on your journey of personal development and self-improvement. Glenn, like I said, it's been a pleasure. I hope to have you back in the near future. I appreciate your words. I'm going to definitely take some with me as well. And that's awesome. Been it for this episode of the Grown Up Podcast. Make sure everyone is staying safe and being kind out there. All right. We're out of here.
Thank you, Derek, for having me. You're having a terrific podcast. Thanks for changing lives as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, family. If you made it to the end, I'm so thankful for you. I hope that you gained some insight from the conversation I had with Glenn. He was a really great guest. We had a really amazing conversation that I took a lot of things away from. So I hope that you gained some things as well. Please, please, please support the podcast by subscribing to the channel. And Grown Up Podcast is a part of a new medium, okay? Grown Up Podcast has now expanded to Indie Soup Media. So you can also catch this interview over at Indie Soup Media, where you can catch some other really awesome independent creators and check them out and support them as well. Y'all know I'm all about opportunities and, of course, being able to collaborate with other independents. So I'm very, very happy that Grown Up Podcast is representing Indie Soup Media. I'm getting tongue tied because I'm on camera. Y'all know I'm nervous. I get nervous on the camera, but eventually I'm gonna be cool. But yeah. So Grown Up Podcast is representing Indie Soup Media, and so if y'all go over to the YouTube channel Indie Soup Media and go subscribe to them as well, I would much appreciate that as well, because y'all know, again, like I said, supporting independence. And other than that, the other way that you could support the podcast is by going to grownuppodcast.info right there on the screen. Y'all know that link will be in the description below for you to click right away. Go and check out the podcast website. You can go and subscribe to the Grown Up Podcast email newsletter from there as well. And just check out a bunch of dope things on there. You can follow directly from there. You can check out other streaming sites from there as well. And just tap in with the podcast. I much appreciate y'all for showing the love and for tapping in with me. And another way that you can work with me, if it's not with the podcast, if you don't want anything to do with the podcast and you just like me, you like the work that I do, you like how I support independent people, and you want to collab, you can go ahead and head to this website right here, DerekHollandBusiness.com. It is live, it is up. I work very hard on my websites. I would definitely call myself a somewhat intermediate website designer. So if you need something in that as well, I could definitely have some insight on that. I've done a few websites myself for other people, but anyways, that's not what that is about. This is a whole nother episode. But just trying to plug myself and let y'all know that I'm out here. I'm putting in the work, not only for myself, but to build something for of course, my namesake and my legacy and what I want to leave here on this earth. So again, thank y'all for joining me for this month's episode of the Grown Up Podcast. Make sure y'all subscribe, like, comment, share, follow. And I do have an episode dropping on podcast streaming platforms. So make sure y'all are subscribed there so y'all can tune into that as well, okay? I appreciate y'all. And as I say to end every episode, make sure y'all stay safe and be kind out there, all right? I'll see y'all on the next episode.